All right, everybody, this is Jarragair9, and I'm back from Green Bay. I'm in New York right now. I will be back in the Phoenix office tomorrow. So I just wanted to give my final thoughts on the NFL draft, talk about how Green Bay did from an organizational standpoint, how this draft went, the pros, the cons, and everything in between. Did Green Bay pull this draft off? There were over 600,000 people at this draft. It was the second largest in a draft in NFL history, only behind Detroit last year. Now, I reviewed the Detroit draft last year. I'll put a link to that in the description and the upper right corner if you want to see my thoughts on that. My reviews of the Detroit draft were not that good, even despite the crazy, crazy number of people that were there. My biggest complaint with Detroit, it was very, very unorganized. And I was very worried with Green Bay because at the end of the day, this is a town that holds 100,000 people. It is the smallest city in the NFL. It's a city that would never get a team in any of the big four or big five sports again if it was taking place today. I didn't know how they were going to pull this off. You're having what is in essence 6 times the population of Green Bay going into Green Bay for this event, and I didn't know if they could pull this off. I was very skeptical, and I want to make something very clear before going any further. We were very fortunate, my dad and I, to get a hotel in Green Bay, so your experience may vary. We were fortunate enough to be able to stay at the Tundra Lodge. That is a close walk to Lambeau Field. And I know a lot of people that were staying in Appleton or Milwaukee and they had shuttles. I don't know how that went necessarily, but we were able to get a hotel within walking distance. So your mileage may vary as I talk about this draft and how everything went. And I have to be honest, I was pleasantly shocked. I was pleasantly shocked because this draft in Green Bay was absolutely magnificent. Green Bay did one heck of a job, and it was a spectacular event that I have to give Mark Murphy and the city of Green Bay a ton of credit for pulling off successfully without any major hiccups. It started right away. The hospitality was incredible. One of my big criticisms for the Detroit draft was that, not counting NFL on location, the NFL people, because they were amazing as always, but I felt that the organizers in Detroit were very unfriendly, very rude at times, almost had no idea what they were doing at times with just organization and whatnot. It felt like they just got the draft that day. You could tell Green Bay's been preparing for this for a while, and they wanted to make you feel very welcome, very much at home. Green Bay did a phenomenal job with that. It started right at the airport. I got like 10,000 offers during this draft for cheese curds. There were people giving away stuff. There were people just being so friendly, and everyone was on top of their game. Everyone knew what they were doing. Everyone knew where to go for everything, what direction to take you in if you were lost, and all of that fun stuff. Everyone was very on top of the ball, very well organized, and very, very friendly and welcoming. The hospitality was nothing short of superb. It was the exact opposite of Detroit, and I was really, really blown away with the Midwestern Wisconsin friendliness. That is not a rumor. The Midwestern friendliness, I was a bit skeptical of that. I'm like, okay, how friendly can these people really be? No, they were very, very friendly. It was really, really cool to see. It was really welcoming, and I had a blast interacting with the people, and they welcomed us with open arms, welcomed everyone with open arms. It was really, really well done in that regard. Everyone was just so nice and so friendly. I can't understate that enough, or overstate that, however you want to put it. They were very friendly. Also want to give a shout out to NFL on Location. The NFL people, as always, were absolutely phenomenal. We got a lot of cool perks this year. They're really upping their game. Not that their game was ever bad, but they keep upping the ante every single year. There was a chalk talk with 5 different wide receivers. The gift packages that we got for sitting out on location were absolutely incredible. Got some really cool stuff, and they were just so welcoming, so friendly, so helpful with everything. They're always incredible. NFL on Location is really, really good. If you want to be able to get a seat at the draft, we've been using NFL on Location for years, and it has been incredible. So if you ever want to go to the draft and get the access that I got, NFL on Location is your best bet. They do a heck of a job, and they really upped their game this year to levels that I did not think were possible, because last year, as bad as that draft was from an organizational standpoint from the Detroit side, I had nothing but nice things to say about the NFL on Location people and the NFL employees working there, and same thing here. It was A+ all the way around. In terms of the organization, going back to that, One of the main things with Detroit that I really criticized was just the road flow and the layout. So the layout of the draft for Detroit was very odd. Everything was very, very far apart from each other. So you have the draft stage on one side, the NFL fan experience on the other. It was almost like a maze to get in between the two things. It was almost like the easiest way to get there was to leave the venue, but then you have to go back in, but then no one knows the way in, and there are exits that are blocked off and whatnot, so you can't get out that way. It was very, very confusing in terms of the layout, and it felt like everything was far apart from each other to the point where it was just very fragmented. Everything was very fragmented. Green Bay integrated seamlessly. Lambeau Field is the backdrop. You have the stage right there, and then you have the fan experience over by Titletown. You can cut through the stadium. It was very, very intuitive. It was very, very easy to get around. It was very, very easy to follow. They really did a good job with the layout, and I was skeptical how they were going to do with the layout because usually these drafts take place somewhere downtown, so they block off downtown. This is by a stadium, so you don't have as much space, relatively speaking, but they made it work. They really made it work, and I think they actually had the largest footprint of any draft, but you couldn't feel it because of the way it was spread out. It was very, very seamless. It was miles better than Detroit in that regard. The other thing, too, with the layout, super easy in, super easy out. Every exit, every entrance was clearly marked. Detroit, I could not say the same. You didn't know where the exit was. You didn't know where the entrance was. You found an exit. Sometimes they won't let you go out unless it was a certain time of the day. Can't say the same about Green Bay. Everything was very clearly marked. Never got lost trying to find anything, which is impressive because sometimes these layouts can be a bit confusing. Green Bay, it was very, very straightforward. You didn't need a map. You could find everything very, very easily in that regard. The other thing that impressed me too with Green Bay, there was no traffic. I was very, very surprised. They were really on top of their game. I was worried with 600,000 people coming, so about 200,000 a day. I was very, very worried that the roads were going to be absolutely flooded because it's a lot of side roads to get to Lambeau Field, and it's not in a major city. There's not a lot of parking spaces necessarily. So I was very curious how the traffic flow would be, considering the fact that Detroit, it was a mob jam. You couldn't get anywhere with a car, and it got to a point where we were at the red carpet in Detroit. They shuttled us from the red carpet to the stage, and it took us 45 minutes with an NFL officially marked vehicle to get there. We might have missed part of the draft if it wasn't for the bus driver just doing his thing. So that was a bit odd with Detroit last year. It was almost like they were holding the draft at the same time. There was still a city around it, and there were still cars going, and you couldn't get anywhere whatsoever. Green Bay, every time I left Green Bay, and we never needed a car for anything, we just got an Uber to and from the airport, but every time I left the draft and was walking around, there were so few cars on the road. They really did a good job managing the traffic flow. All that you saw was sometimes on the side of the road, you saw shuttles and buses taking people from, I'm assuming, Green Bay to Appleton or Milwaukee or somewhere along those lines, but you never saw any traffic, any congestion. I never saw more than two cars next to each other at a time, unless it was like street parking. They really managed the traffic flow very well. And again, I was fortunate enough to be within walking distance, so your mileage may vary on this, but I was very impressed with the traffic flow and just the organization all the way around. Even at the airport, when we got to the airport, our bags were out in 3 minutes, and then going back from Green Bay to New York, they added that flight. I was wondering, okay, Sunday, everyone's going to be flying out. There was no line at TSA. Everyone was working. Everyone was just on their game. I think that's the best way to say. Everyone was on their game. This was like a game day in Green Bay times a million, and they answered the call tremendously. The organization was top notch, and I was very worried after Detroit because I was like, okay, this draft was kind of a mess, but they got about a quarter or 3/4 of a million people to come. So I'm wondering if this could be a bad omen going forward, a bad trend going forward. Will they sacrifice the organization for the crowds? And this year it was not that whatsoever. You could still pull this off with the crowds and have well-organized events. If Green Bay could do it, there is no excuse for any other city in the NFL to not be able to pull something like this off. And then obviously the backdrop of Lambeau Field, just the aura, the history, they really did a good job throughout the draft. I love the stage. I love the house band. I loved everything about just being at Lambeau Field. There was something special about watching a draft and seeing the players come out, especially if they got drafted by the Packers, and you were standing right next to Lambeau Field, the cathedral of football. It is a gorgeous stadium, not just in terms of the history, but in terms of keeping it well maintained. When I toured that thing, I was blown away. It is probably the best stadium in the NFL that I've been to. SoFi is a tough one to beat. It's very different, but Lambeau absolutely exceeded my expectations. I'm glad I could cross off the bucket list. And that was really what a lot of people were saying about this draft. They were able to cross an experience off the bucket list that they would not have been otherwise able to do so. And the NFL did a really good job at making that happen. Really, really well organized, really friendly all the way around. Now, in terms of the con, I really only have one con from this draft. You might remember Detroit. I had a lot of issues with the Detroit draft. As great as NFL locations and the NFL employees, that I had a lot of issues with the draft itself. Green Bay, there's really only one issue that I have, and I don't know if it's an NFL thing or a Green Bay thing, but the entertainment has been lacking. I will just throw that out there. The entertainment has been lacking in many ways. Las Vegas, you had a concert every single night. After night 1, you had Weezer. Night 2, Ice Cube. Night 3, Marshmello. It wasn't that good, but you had entertainment every night. Kansas City was the same thing. You had an act every single night. And at least Thursday and Friday were prominent acts in Motley Crue, who put on a really good show, which I was not expecting, and Fall Out Boy, who was phenomenal. Detroit didn't really have anything. And again, I'm not really sure if it has to do with curfew or whatnot, because the draft does run late. But Green Bay only had one post-draft concert. That was Saturday. Now, having said that, Brad Paisley was amazing. Brad Paisley Saturday night, that was the best post-draft concert I've seen. I've seen some really good ones. Brad Paisley was professional. He kept the crowd going. There were no breaks in the action. He knew what he was doing. He's a seasoned pro, and he was absolutely incredible the hour that he played. But Thursday, there was nothing. And Friday, there was a drone show, which only lasted 5 minutes. Now, the drones themselves were cool. The problem with the drone show was twofold. Number one, it was very short. A 5-minute show after the draft just is not going to cut it when we have had these concerts that last 40 minutes, an hour. A 5-minute drone show, it's tough to get people to stay for that. And I think we saw that Thursday, Friday. There's no incentive, if you don't have a post-draft concert, for people to stay. The atmosphere definitely dies down as a result, because once the Packers make their pick, the place kind of empties out. They want to beat the traffic. They want to go home. They're getting tired. They've been standing out there for a while. You need to give people an incentive and a reason to stay for the entire night. Thursday, there was no incentive, so the place really emptied out after the Packers made their pick. And Friday, with the drone show, there really was no incentive to stay because the show was only 5 minutes. And on top of that, the drones really should have been over Lambeau Field. Instead, the drones were over the porta potty tents by the theater, which meant that if you were in the theater, you couldn't see the drone show. So you had to literally leave the draft to see the show. And even if you were able to see part of the show, the problem is that the drones were not high enough in the skies, so half the thing was blocked off. I'm not sure if you could tell from the video I posted, but I could only see about half the show, because the first half I thought they were going to be above Lambeau Field. They were not. They were above a completely different location that people inside the theater couldn't see, and if you were too close, you couldn't see anything because it was obstructed because the drones did not fly high enough. It should have been over Lambeau Field. I think a drone show is super cool, don't get me wrong. They did a good job with the drones, but the entertainment has been a bit lackluster, and I don't know if that's curfew related or anything along those lines, if that's a Green Bay thing, if that's an NFL thing, but there really should be a concert Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night. You saw it for KC, you saw it for Vegas. I'm not sure why we didn't see it for Detroit. Now, we did see pre-draft concerts. It's not the same with a pre-draft concert because people are still filing in. It's a bit tense compared to post-draft where everyone's just having a good time. The entertainment has been a bit lackluster, and I don't know if that, again, I don't know if that's a Green Bay thing or an NFL thing, but hopefully it's not the case in Pittsburgh, and they're able to have post-draft concerts Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and hopefully if they do a drone show, they also have a concert alongside it, or the drone show is longer than 5 minutes, and it's a location where everyone can see the show. Having said that, that's not the only con I've got. That's the only con I've got. This draft was absolutely magnificent. Green Bay blew away all my expectations. I was expecting a disaster. I was expecting an absolute nightmare. And what I got was one of the most fun, well-organized drafts in my life. I've been to a lot of drafts. I've been to 9 at this point. Now, in terms of where I would rank this thing, Vegas is Vegas. At the end of the day, Las Vegas is Las Vegas. There's nothing really you can do about that. No city, I don't think, is ever going to top Vegas from an entertainment perspective, a weather standpoint, just everything. Vegas threw on a heck of a party, heck of a show. They also had more time than any other city to prepare for it because they were supposed to get it in 2020 and then COVID happened, so they got pushed back to 22. Vegas was on top of their game. That was an incredible, incredible draft. and that will ever, for always, forever and always be number one, unless Phoenix gets a draft. I can just stay in my own my own apartment. Having said that, I did not think I'd say this. Green Bay's number two. Green Bay, better than Kansas City, better than Chicago, better than Cleveland, Detroit, New York, better than Nashville. I never thought I'd say that. Better than Nashville. I think the deciding thing with Nashville was that it was a bit segmented in terms of the NFL experience was a bit far away. It was definitely a bit far away compared to where the draft was. You had to cross the bridge. It was like a mile walk to get from that to the NFL experience. And there was some public roads one I had to go on. So Green Bay was more organized in that regard. I think the other thing, too, with Nashville, critiquing it versus Green Bay, is just the entertainment aspect as well. Brad Paisley put on a heck of a show. I can excuse Thursday, Friday. Nashville, there really wasn't anything outside Garth Brooks Friday. The weather Thursday was also not good in Nashville. Green Bay had good weather all 3 days. The friendliness, the organization, I cannot believe I'm saying this. Green Bay is number two. And it's no disrespect to Nashville because they put on a heck of a show and I love that city. But Green Bay blew all my expectations out of the water. And everyone in Green Bay should be very, very proud of the job they did pulling this event off. And I would have no qualms whatsoever if the draft went back to Green Bay. It was a magnificent, magnificent show. And I'll put it this way, Pittsburgh, you got one heck of an act to follow. You got one tough act to follow because Green Bay raised the bar in so many ways, in their hospitality, in their friendliness, in their organization, in ways that I did not think was possible. It was a complete 180 from the Detroit draft last year, and I could not be happier to be proven wrong. Green Bay, really, really good job. And I'll put it this way, I got to go back to Green Bay at some point. Don't know when it's going to be. I know the Jaguars could play there in 26. I got to go back at some point because if it's anything like my last experience in Green Bay, yeah, I could go back anytime. So with that in mind, if you guys went to the Green Bay draft, what are your thoughts on it from an organization standpoint, just from a standpoint in general? Did you like the draft? Did you not like the draft? What worked? What didn't work? What could be improved upon? Do you think my criticisms are fair, valid? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. We're back to regular history videos tomorrow, Tuesday, April 29th, if you're watching as of this video game released. And until then, I will see you guys soon. But Green Bay, congratulations. You pulled off one heck of a show.